It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
They all say, feed the body, feed the brain. And we know that food is absolutely critical for each and every one of us, and even more especially for our children. Bethany Ross, our guest today, is all about creating that superb sandwich to ensure that every child in Calgary has a healthy lunch. But first, our land acknowledgement.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ga'aina, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Eahe Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta.
Alrighty, Miss Bethany, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Well, I'm excited because, as we heard in the bio, you're looking to do the perfect sandwich making.
My continual journey.
Your continual journey. Yeah, I think, wasn't it Archie and Dagwood? Dagwood was always making,
so
yes.
big. Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're on the, they're in the, okay. Before we dive into the layers of the perfect sandwich, and we get into the meat of all this, I mean, there's going to be so many puns.
So many good sandwich puns.
So many sandwich puns. I would love to know a little bit more of, if you're open to it, who is Bethany?
Sure. I have lived in Calgary since I was little, since I was very young. So this is certainly home. I love community, and I love things that bring folks closer and give us the opportunity to care for each other and live in that space of connection and togetherness. I think that's where we're at our best and at our strongest. So I get passionate about anything that allows us to do that.
Well, and I love how you say community. Community is one of my favorite words, right? Resilience and community are the two that I always cling to. But when we look at community, we talk about, you just said, connections. There's also commitment and continuity, right? So when we look at all of this, I want to dive into brown bagging. And first of all, how did the brown bagging for Calgary Kids come about?
Sure.
Who brought that about? And I mean, isn't there enough social programs out there? Do we really need this?
That's a great question.
So let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning.
Where did brown bagging come about?
So brown bagging for Calgary's Kids, our work is to connect kids to the food that they need. And this has always been a story of community. Brown bagging was started in the 90s by a group of folks who saw a need to bring food to kids. And they actually initially started packing lunches in big kitchens and small kitchens and delivering it to kids who were homeless. In the 90s, youth homelessness really started to become a prominent issue for our community, and folks were starting to respond to that, but there were a real lack of food resources in that space. So they did that for a few years until there were so many more amazing organizations supporting kids who were experiencing homelessness, and those organizations started to have the ability to bring on food. And then they saw an opportunity for change. So they really looked around kind of early 2000s and saw a need for food for kids in school, and really shifted their focus to do the same thing, continue to prepare food for kids, but they started delivering to schools. And it's really always been about how we can bring folks together to care for our neighbors and to care for each other in spaces around food, particularly. And particularly food for kids is kind of our focus and our passion. But it's really about using that and driving community to come together around caring for kids.
What is the impact, seriously, a brown bag for a child can make? I want to pull that apart because you just mentioned homelessness, and I actually met an adult who survived childhood homelessness and lived in a tent in Canada with her parent. And I'm sitting here going, how do you do this? And this is the most amazing, resilient adult.
Yeah.
But we don't want to see people
No.
have to become resilient through those types.
No.
So what does a brown bag of food mean to a child, mean to a student? Because we're in student space.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could avoid developing resiliency in these horrific ways? I think food means a lot to each of us. So if we think about the ways that we access food and the ways that we engage with food in our own lives. So me as an adult, if I'm connecting with somebody, if I'm maybe building a business or relationship or a friendship, I'm going for lunch. I go for breakfast. I go for coffee. If I'm celebrating a big celebration, a holiday with my family, we have a big dinner. We have a meal together. We cook together, perhaps. We sit at a table together. We eat together. So food shows up socially in all of these different spaces in our lives. And of course, we know the impact of food on our bodies and on our mental health. I don't know about you. I have real hangry issues. So if I skip lunch, I am not a kind person. I'm not a good friend. I'm not a good coworker. I'm not, it's just unpleasant. And so we know that all of those things are certainly true for kids as well. So if you're a child, we provide lunches for kids in kindergarten right through grade 12. And in any of those years, if you're a kid who isn't having access to the food that they need on a consistent basis, you're probably not developing physically in your very best way. You're probably struggling to focus. You're struggling to learn. You're not maybe getting the best reinforcement from your peers and from adults in your school because you're not showing up as your best self. You're not eating. Probably a little hangry, probably, maybe kicking your best friend under the table instead of focusing in math class, or really not being able to focus to read because your head hurts and your stomach hurts and you're hungry. And of course, we know the way that food shows up socially, again, in a cafeteria, at home. If you are the only third grader who doesn't have lunch at school today, you're not sitting at the cafeteria table with your friends while they eat, because that food smells good and it looks good and you are hungry. You are opting out of that whole experience. You're hanging out in the bathroom or the stairwell. You're waiting until everybody else goes outside so you can go outside and you can pretend that didn't happen. But if we just put food in your hands, you can totally sit at that table. You can talk about your favorite snack with your friend. You can talk about that math teacher who tried to teach you that stupid multiplication thing. You can have those friendships and develop those social skills. You can be part of that community. And again, for home, if you are in a home that doesn't have access to consistent, nutritious food, you're probably not eating at a table together every night, or you're struggling, or your parent is skipping meals and trying to pretend that that's not a reality for you. So I think food shows up in all of these spaces that are so foundational and fundamental for all of us as human beings, and particularly for kids as they're developing physically, mentally, social skills, all of those things. Food is so central to our lives.
And we're still dealing with the caveman brain. We're still dealing with the fear, the fight, flight, fear, freeze, right? Food scarcity, how does that impact? Do you know of any studies around children and how food scarcity, that psychology of food scarcity, can impact them long term?
Mm-hmm. I think it's like there's been lots of studies on this, and I think it's really it's the same as any other basic need that we are missing maybe in our childhood, or that we are worried about. Those things have a really huge impact on, again, certainly physical health. You're probably not developing physically as healthfully as you could, and also absolutely on mental health and on your ability to care for yourself and to trust that you can care for yourself. So much of what we're seeing in school programs is if I am a kid who's worried about food, who maybe doesn't have access to consistent, nutritious food, my parents love me and they care for me and they're doing the very best they can for me. And the reality is there just isn't enough food in my house. If I go to school and I express that need to a teacher, or I say I'm hungry, or can I have lunch today? And you are a teacher who's able to respond with no problem. What kind of sandwich is your favorite? You immediately become someone I can trust. You immediately become someone that I can build a really trusting, strong relationship with. And I have another adult now in my corner who I know will show up for me. That's so powerful.
And I've seen studies around this where one adult can literally turn the tide for the future of the next leader or the next person who fails to thrive.
Absolutely.
And that all comes back to supporting the community. Okay.
And look, I don't think there's a healthy parent in our city who woke up this morning who thought, I'd really enjoy not feeding my child today. That is not a thing that happened.
No.
But thousands of parents woke up this morning and thought, ooh, it's a little tight and I get paid in 2 days so I can go grocery shopping then. But to get us till then, I have this, pack of Kraft dinner and I have some ramen and I can probably swing a lunch if I skip a meal. And they're doing all of this math and organizing and all of these things to try and make it work. That's really exhausting for any parent.
Yeah.
And that also has an impact on their kids, on the way they parent, on the way that they care for their kids, because of course it does. So it's a whole system.
I get it. The person I am today is not the person I was at 21 years of age. Right. We all go through a life journey. Yeah. And I am the cook. I love to have people at my table. Yep. I can get pretty creative when times are lean, but times are really lean for a lot of people. Yeah. How is brown bagging navigating this new kind of world economy that we're in? Like everything's up 20, 30%.
Yeah.
I just heard on I think it was CBC or 660. It's probably one of those two because that's all that's in my car right now. That they did a survey and they believe 50% of all restaurants are looking at potentially closing.
Yeah.
So walk me through how brown bagging for Calgary Kids is navigating this new world order and who your partners are in getting this food, very needed food, to our youth, because the future is our youth.
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple more numbers.
Awesome.
That I think a lot about. So we know that right now 27% of kids in Alberta experience food insecurity in the last 12 months. And so that's everything from worried about food, maybe a parent is losing sleep, worried about how they're going to have enough food next month, all the way to actively skipping meals and compromising on nutrition. 27%.
Wow.
Like a full 1 in 4. There are 40 apartments in my apartment building. 10 of those families are experiencing food insecurity. That's overwhelming in terms of the number of kids, number of people in our city right here who are experiencing food insecurity. We also know the Calgary Foundation released a quality of life report a couple of weeks ago that showed 35% of parents are skipping meals to make sure their kids have access to enough food. Huge numbers. And the other one, you asked about kind of the cost of food and the impact that has and kind of this current economy. Our food costs at Brown Bagging for Calgary's Kids are up between 20 and 25% in the last 2 years. And we're purchasing largely wholesale food. So in addition to providing lunches for more kids, we're also paying more for the same food supplies as we were a couple of years ago. So all of that has an impact. The number of kids that Brown Bagging provides a lunch for has gone up about 20% in the last year. So right now we provide a lunch for more than 6,500 kids every school day. And that is largely due to shifts in our economy and what families are experiencing. 27% of kids experiencing food insecurity, 35% of parents skipping meals. Like those have real impacts on then kids coming to school without the food that they need. And their school, fortunately, being able to respond and provide them a lunch, which we're very grateful for community showing up in that space. But we know that there's so many kids, so many families who are experiencing that stress and experiencing that need. So it's been a really big shift in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I don't think we're at the end of this. I think over the next 2 years, we're going to see mortgages come for renewals. Yep. We're seeing shifts in our major employers. Yep. Like there's some big things. So first, I want to say, if you're out there and you're listening to this, hustling to your second job, trying to get things as solid as possible for your family, please know you are not alone. No. This is a very serious topic we're talking about. Yeah. And as a mother of 3 children, I get it. I see it. That is why Bethany is here. So now we're going to talk. I really want to dive into how can we. Who do you need to align with partnerships? Yeah. Sorry, this is really this is
really tough.
Food is
so tough. And you know what? It's so real, right? And I think
it's
again we can all relate to. I know that feeling when I just have a day, right? And I'm running and I'm in meetings and I forget to eat, or I have to do a thing and I don't have to. I am honestly a mess.
Yeah.
And for families who are trying to make those tough calls and still finding themselves in that place, it's really hard. So we have this amazing community who comes around to feed kids. So let's talk about partners and what that looks like. Yeah, let's talk about
partners because we need to meet the need because I think 6,500 kids is going to grow.
Yes.
And so, and food prices are not going to come down. No. So let's talk about partners, where you make the food, and how can other businesses or places and spaces support if they're not actually physically providing a space or giving actual like labor time. Absolutely. So let's start with your partners in how you make the food and get it out there.
Absolutely. So when I say brown bagging as a community, I really mean it. So we engage more than 600 volunteers every single week in preparing lunches. We have about 30 kitchens across the city where lunches are prepared by volunteers, and we are almost 100% funded by donations from community.
Where do you find those kitchens? Like you say 30 kitchens. Yeah. Is this in your kitchen?
Yeah. So we have a central kitchen just close to here in the Beltline. Okay. Right across from Safeway on 11th Ave. And it's a big kitchen. We make about half of our lunches there. And so in a typical morning, we'll have as many as 30 or 40 volunteers. Many come with a company for the first time, so companies can sign up to volunteer with us. It's we have morning, afternoon, and we're just about to launch evening shifts as well for folks to come in, and you're super hands-on. You are preparing lunches. You're putting mayo on bread and putting carrots and apples in bags, and we're doing some baking, some muffins and scones and delicious things like that. So it's a super hands-on volunteer experience. We put everyone to work. We work hard. But everyone leaves knowing they did something really great with food and for kids.
What time do those volunteers come in?
Yeah, so we start as early as 6:30 in the morning, and then we also have afternoon and evening shifts. So depending on the shift the folks want, it's between a 2 and 4 hour commitment to come with a group and join us in the kitchen. We also have locations across the city. So that's our biggest spot, but we have kitchens. We have volunteers working in church kitchens and community centers. We partner with restaurants who use their kitchens and their staff to prepare food. It's lots of different versions across the city, and we're always looking for folks who want to start up spaces like that. In particular, this year we're focused on developing some community spaces in the Northeast that are kitchen locations where either we can have volunteers come and use that space, or maybe it's a group with a kitchen who has folks on site who want to prepare lunches that way as well. That is a wonderful support. We provide lunches to kids in more than 240 schools across the city. And so we need to be in every community and every neighborhood to make sure that we can access schools and that kids can get the food they need. So that's one great way, either to sign up to come and volunteer in our kitchen as an individual. We've got lots of folks who just come on their own. We also need folks to drive. So all of our lunches are delivered by volunteers using their own vehicles. Folks can find all of that information on our website. And then also folks who want to start up community spaces outside of our kitchen where they can prepare lunches. We love supporting those as well.
Amazing. And I'm going to just guess that I'm going to guess here that the volunteer element is as valuable as the food that is donated or brought in.
The volunteers are incredible. Yeah, every lunch is made and delivered by a volunteer. This is a true community effort. We need hundreds of people every week to make it happen. The volunteer commitment is amazing.
I would say if you are an empty nester out there, if you're sitting here and you're looking for a fun early morning activity for you and your spouse, the kids are gone, and you got a few extra hours. You got years of experience in making those lunches. Come make lunches for other people's kids.
With us.
Amazing. Okay, so we've talked about the partners. We've talked about how you get the kitchens. How do you find the food? Like, where does the food? Are you guys purchasing the food, or do you have partnership with them? People who are giving you discounts on the food, like a food bank gets, they have a higher purchasing. Walk me through how you're getting this food.
So we have a couple of great community relationships with food banks, so we're able to get some donated food from them. We also have some folks who organize snack drives on our behalf. So sometimes people will pair that with a holiday party or something like that where they can collect. We have a pretty specific list of snack items that are great for kids that can go out from our kitchen. And so folks will often collect those, which is wonderful. The rest of our food we purchase, and we do that so that it's consistent. It's really important to us that the food, because we're using a lot of fresh food, that we're not worried about expiry dates or it smells a little off or those sorts of things, that we're able to really deliver on consistent food because we are providing lunch for so many kids every day. One kind of needing to throw out a box of bad turkey or something would put a big wrinkle in those plans. So we purchase a lot of our food. We are almost entirely funded by donations. So a lot of that food purchasing is powered by folks who are giving financially to help make sure that kids have the food they need.
And when you say consistency, are you talking about like the type of sandwich, the type of and I'm guessing in a child's life that maybe consistency is on a back burner while everybody's just surviving?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So a really important factor in food security is consistency and predictability. You know where your dinner's coming from. You may not know what you're having. My husband is preparing dinner tonight, so it's going to be a surprise. I'm not sure what's on the menu, but I know that there is going to be plenty of food in our house tonight. So that predictability, sometimes when you're living in food insecurity, that predictability is not there. And especially for kids who have less control over their food environment, that's even more so. So it's really important to us that the food that shows up in schools is consistent. We want a kid to know if they choose an egg salad sandwich today and they choose an egg salad sandwich tomorrow, it's going to be exactly the same. That we use the same recipe, they can count on it. They also have to count on it being there. So we work really hard to make sure that the food shows up on time every single day and that there's nothing off about it. That it's not going to make you sick. You're not going to have to be questioning where it came from. That it's really predictable.
An egg salad is literally one of the most underrated sandwiches out there, and it's
good.
my favorite.
I know, it's so good.
It's my favorite. Now, folks, I'm going to be fully transparent here. I like mine on squishy white bread. Just letting you know, I like it squishy. Oh yeah.
We have 7 different kinds of sandwiches that go out of our main kitchen, but my favorite is the pea butter and jam. So we're nut-free facility.
Yeah.
So we use a ground golden pea. The peas are from a farm actually in northern Alberta, and it is delicious.
Does it have, like, when we talk about like the proteins and stuff, peas would have protein. I used to have my middle child was in high burn years when he was in swim.
Yep.
And so peanut butter, honey, and banana.
Oh, yeah.
That's the scuba diver sandwich, right?
So
power.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the value of people providing space, people providing transportation, people providing the ability to slather on the mayo and just stepping up. Two more elements to this, right? So one is going to be in the promotion, the word. How do you guys get, everybody talks about influencers and this and that. Yeah. How do you get your message out? This is obviously coming on a podcast like this, but let's talk about your messaging and how you're reaching potentially new partners.
Sure. So a lot of our work to build, one of the things that's really important to us is to build awareness of food insecurity. So we talked about like 1 in 4 families is struggling to ensure that they have a consistent, predictable food sources. That's something we all should be aware of. We can all talk about because that's something that's happening to us, to our neighbors, all around us. So we're talking about that a lot and trying to make sure that folks, know they're not alone in that and that they know that how they can access support if they need it. So, and of course, we're talking to folks about how they can join community and be part of making sure kids have access to food. So we have the opportunity to do lots of things like this and lots of other media sources, but largely It's about people coming in to our space and doing something, and then they leave feeling like they want to talk about it. And we love that. So folks will come in with their work team in the morning, they'll spend a couple hours, they'll work hard, and then they'll head back to the office and somebody will ask, where were you this morning? And they'll be able to talk about it. And we can spread the word that way really well, which is lovely.
So speak up, folks. Speak up, folks. And actually,
Talk about it.
I don't, and I know I'm going to hear something from somebody, but I don't like going to the gym. And if I could just use this at like a
come on
6 a.m.
down.
option.
Yeah. We are so there for you
Can we
skipping the
just call
gym.
your
No
kitchen
problem.
gym? I went to the gym.
Yeah,
And look at the
think it
workout.
counts.
Look at these pipes,
I
folks.
think it counts. It's in there.
So I want to talk about partnerships because
Yeah.
I believe we did meet upwards of 7 years ago at a new place that had opened up here in Calgary. And they had I think they had killer mac and cheese
Yeah,
and such.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
had done something there. That was the first time I had heard of brown bagging for Calgary Kids. And it kind of fascinated me that this restaurant had chosen to kind of pick up the gauntlet, use their commercial space early in the mornings with their staff before they started prepping for their day.
Yeah.
They would prep and then deliver a few hundred bags of lunches,
Yeah.
right? Well, how else can companies, professional companies, aside from volunteering, step in? Maybe they don't have the time to come and volunteer and they don't have the food that they can give you. How else can they support without it? Maybe time is not our friend half the time in business.
Totally.
How can they support without sending volunteers, without doing all of that?
Yeah, so there's a couple great ways. One is something that the club has just signed up for, which is our Feeding Futures program. So we've got
Futures
Feeding
program.
Futures.
Okay.
So we've got a number of restaurants, small businesses who have signed up, and they select an item on their menu or within their business that every time they sell one, they'll make a $1 or $2 donation to Brown Bagging for Calgary's Kids. So here at the club, it's the famous fish and chips, and every time you come on down and get one of those dishes, the club will donate $1 to Brown Bagging, which is a great way to have some consistent revenue to support making sure that that the community can continue to feed kids.
And I think I saw that there was a couple food trucks I saw last year
probably,
that actually had the BB4
Yeah.
CK on it.
Yeah.
And one was a poutine truck. I mean, hello.
Why not?
Right? Feel good while you're eating.
exactly.
And that was, again, $1 for
Yeah.
every one of those went back to that. What a great way to step up and really give back.
Yeah.
Really, it's a tangible.
It's totally
Right?
tangible. It's also great awareness because folks are coming into your business and you're talking about
Yeah.
your relationship with brown bagging, and we love that as a way to spread the word. And it's a great way for small businesses. It can be super accessible, right? $1 off a menu item. Doesn't have to be a big impact, but
Yeah.
for us, it can be a big impact because it's part of this whole community collective, which
And
is amazing.
And your dollar power buying groceries, is that similar to like the food bank, where if I donate $1 to the food bank, it's basically it can equate to the $2 I would or the
Yeah.
$1.50 I would
Yeah.
spend at the grocery store. So do you have a little bit more buying power that way?
Yeah, we're purchasing in wholesale prices for the most part, and we have volunteers who are giving their time to do the work. So
Amazing.
that money goes a long way to making sure that we can prepare lunches for kids.
6,500 children, and I'm
Every
going
day.
to every day, and I'm going to guess. And I'm not. Be it. I don't believe I'm negative. I think I look at everything very optimistically, but I also look very realistically, and I know that with helping to support so many new Canadians. And the change in the mortgages are going to hit people pretty hard over the next few years. And that's not even people getting a new mortgage. That's people just trying to stay in their homes. So when you think about the change from somebody who got a mortgage 36 months ago,
Yeah.
and that mortgage was at, $1,600, that mortgage is going to be upwards of $2,800 once all the new changes come in place.
Yeah.
these children are going to need to be looked at. So I'm only going to guess that the number is going to grow for about brown bagging.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing that we hear quite a bit from families is we have this much income, and so we went and got a mortgage, and we went and budgeted out our money the way that any of us do in our lives, according to how much income we had, and then something like our mortgage changes dramatically, or our income changes dramatically. And there aren't a lot of places to take that from in our budget. So something that's not easy to do, but it is really quick, is you spend less money on food. And it's a terrible decision to have to make. It often, I think for a lot of families, it feels like there are no good options. And so I'm choosing the thing that feels the least bad, but none of them feel good. But it may be the choice that we have to make. And that's where we find ourselves. And even if we plan to sell our home or our car or one of those big expenses, that's not something that happens overnight.
And it's also may not be the solution, because to replace a vehicle, you still have to live somewhere. Like these are realities. Now, we've talked about how you can support what is Brown Bag, coming into the club down here at the Calgary Petroleum Club, grabbing that fish and chips. Is there a site somewhere that we can go and see the different businesses that are supporting in this way?
Yeah, you can find a Feeding Futures page on our website, and it lists all the businesses that are part of it. And we'd love you to visit any and all of them. They're great partners.
Okay, let's do. Who wants to do this with me? I think it would be cool to have a Feeding Futures passport.
Oh, I love it. So fun.
Oh,
that'd be super fun.
Oh, I that's the marketing gal in me. I'm going, okay, how do we, so.
We'll get you to lunch it.
There you go. There you go. So come down, try that out. Let's close this out on a fun note. What's the most popular sandwich?
The most popular sandwich is turkey and cheese. Little
turkey
mayo,
and cheese.
Delicious.
Turkey and cheese.
Yeah.
So is there a proper, so we know in the Big Mac, you've got the proper sequence. What is the proper sequence for the turkey and cheese sandwich?
Well, see, this is where I'm not a good sandwich maker. So the proper sequence is bun, mayo, cheese, turkey, bun. But I always mix it up, and the mayo goes on the wrong side, and then I drop something on the floor, and then they make me leave the kitchen. So
they make you leave the kitchen.
They know that's it's in a pinch, but that's not my best bet.
Send Bethany out on the drive. We got this.
Yeah.
We got this.
Exactly.
Bethany, I know you're super busy. 6,500 kids are relying on you guys daily, and you took time to share with us, and I really appreciate that. Most importantly, I appreciate the fact that you've got the Calgary Petroleum Club and all of us who are working here to make Calgary's economy viable. You got us, gave us an opportunity to join you on this mission with the fish and chips. Who doesn't love fish and chips? Hello.
Fish and chips. Yeah. We are
you.
Thrilled. I'm so grateful for chatting with you today and for engaging with this community. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, calpeteclub.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.